Welcome to the Modern Mystic podcast, where we help you make your spirituality an actuality and find more meaning, mindfulness, and magic in your day-to-day life. I am your host, Kilkenny, who is an elite coach, yoga and meditation professor, priestess, psychic medium, and astrologer, and have been training and spiritually mentoring thousands of people over the past 20 years. Today, I am spilling with ebullience and joy because Joe Longo, mindset and manifestation coach, is back for a little mystic misfit conversation where we are going to share and unlock concrete ways as to how to connect with your spirit team and guides. So, welcome back, Joe, my friend, my man.
Hello. It's so good to be back. I can't wait to have this conversation because as you were just saying that, so many things just popped through of these random little things that happen with our spirit team, even before we know who they are.
So true, right? And I love this topic so much because I'm a psychic medium and I do readings almost every day these
Mm-hmm.
days. And it's such a passion of mine to teach people how they can become spiritually empowered. Because though having a reading with myself, with you, Joe, and the work you do can literally shift people's perspective so much, can change lives.
Mm-hmm.
And the more individuals learn to connect with their spirit team, I find then they can live in much more peace and harmony and really live a more authentic life and be at more peace with one's own truth and be clear on one's unique purpose when you've got that Wi-Fi hooked up to the
Mm-hmm.
team, right?
Yeah, exactly. Can I start by asking you a question about
Yes,
this?
yes, I'd
So
love
I'm
to.
I'm curious as to, and I would imagine your listeners are as well. When did you find, like, let's say, when did you become comfortable with chatting with your team?
Such a great question. For me, most of my listeners have heard this story, so I'm not even going to go into it, just to touch on it. But I've been meditating since I was 5. So
Hmm.
that's the pinpoint moment where I had the invitation, the training to connect to something that was within myself and yet greater than myself and start that conversation. So that's the short answer. For me,
I
it was in the form of meditation, and then I grew up hanging out with all sorts of mystics and
hmm
scholars of religion and spirituality. And so I got along the way all these different perspectives on, oh, okay, you've got Wi-Fi now. I know how to get Wi-Fi. Oh, but you can
hmm
tune into this channel, and then you can tune into this channel, and then this channel. So looking back, my life has been a real conglomeration of just learning and layering on. And then I've got my Irish priestess background and that heritage, which is all about, a different way of connecting to my spirit team. So it's so funny because one of the things I want to talk about, and thanks for I love that you have both the questions of me, it's so great, is that, like, I'll still get a reading once in a while from someone, and
hmm
people, at say, oh, well, you don't ever get readings. And I get downloads every day. This morning I was having incredible downloads. And yet there's so much value from still having a different perspective, a
hmm
different viewpoint of a guide or someone who's reading you. And recently I had a reading in the last year with Bonnie Worth, who's been on the podcast, and she's a great teacher and wisdom holder. And I'd never done a reading with her. I don't do that many readings. And so she said to me, "Oh my God, Kilkenny, you have like a really big team." And I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." She's like, "No, like you have like an army here." She's like,
hmm
and I think my particular karma, because of the particular work I offer, that's been my karma. In my
hmm
experience, I'd say the majority of people probably have a 3 to 6 main squeeze team, you know, and
hmm
then and then it goes on from there. But that's one answer.
I,
To try to be
I
pithy.
thank you. And I love just synchronicities and how the synchronicities are. So when I was 5, I heard this little voice tell me that everything would be okay. It was at least in my 5-year-old mind, a horrifying thunder and lightning storm.
Mm,
And everyone was asleep in my house. And I heard this little voice as plain as day say, I'm always with you. You have nothing to be afraid of.
mm.
And it was just there. And I woke up, my family, my mom was like, that was God. God's always with you. Maybe it was Archangel Michael. Who knows? But there was somebody there. And that 5-year-old triggered, like, oh, sure. Well, this is normal. And my mom, very intuitive, very spiritual, saying that, it was instead of, oh, you didn't hear anything. It was the confirming of, oh, well, of course, that was God. It was somebody that made it be, oh, well, this is okay. And then growing up, it wasn't um, like a meditation, but there was always very religious, my house, but also this like kind of side little story of, you know, your grandma used to read tea leaves, or your great grandma read tea leaves, and my mom being intuitive, and my dad really never said anything. But just a couple of years ago, I got him like to throw little things out about his creativity and where the creativity comes from, and like these things that he sees and dreams. And that hit me like, oh, my parents, I bet you, really connected chatting about this weird shit.
That's so great. I love that so much, and I love both of us had that age of 5, and it
Mm-hmm.
just reminded me of to affirm. So some people obviously have parents who are atheists and or just really coming into their spirituality now. I have many people
Mm-hmm.
who write me like, "Oh my God, this podcast is opening up all these worlds and dimensions." I had a family that up until I was 5 was totally atheist, actually,
Mm.
like totally atheist. And my sister was very interested in a particular form of Christianity at this moment, right before things shifted for my mother. And she took me
Uh-huh.
to meditation classes. And I remember being in a car and it raining. And my sister had taken me to some kind of Christian event where there was praying, and I never experienced anything like that. And I remember tracing, the raindrops with my finger, and literally the similar experience, like talking to God, source, goddess, however you think about it, and saying, "Oh my, like my parents don't know you exist, but I feel you. I
Mm-hmm.
feel you." So that's beautiful for folks to think about if they had a moment, a seed moment in childhood, maybe where they believed in something that was either nourished, like with you, or maybe not. But think back to that, because I thank you. I hadn't even thought of that moment. And then I remember that moment. So you can take a pause and think about what's your relationship to your guides and your belief system. And are there any moments in childhood? That's a beautiful way to start. The
Mm-hmm.
other way that I think is so important to start, because even with my coaching clients who I help people, support them learning how to connect to their team, learning how to source their life more from spirit and their intuition, completely from their intuition, frankly. So much of it is actually step one, invite them in. So
Mm-hmm.
many people just literally don't realize, like, if you want a friend to come over, right? Even if they're your
Uh-huh.
friend, like each person listening has a spirit team. I can assure you, a set of angels, of spirit animals, of guides, unseen archetypes and forces cheering you on and trying to help you.
Mm-hmm.
You can
And
have a lot of
it's
friends, but if you don't DM them, if you don't text them, if you don't invite them to your house, right, they can't show up for you. So that is step one, a concrete,
mm-hmm.
actual step. Invite them in. How do you do that? What are your ways to invite your
uh,
spirit team in?
so interesting. I love that we're going down this route. Because even though this, the little voice was there from the time I was little, it was there, but I always had this, I want more. Like, I want to see the things. I want to feel the thing. I want the premonition, to happen. And as I grew up, I kind of like was like, well, I'm not seeing the things the way I envision seeing them. And then in probably right around the end of high school, I started really got into Edgar Casey and his predictions and Nostradamus and all that stuff. And again, I was like, what do I need a crystal ball? Like I need something. But my whole life, there's been these little my team has been around me. I just didn't realize, right, that they were around me. And hearing stories of great grandma reading the tea leaves. And at that time, like, I wasn't pulling oracle cards. I really didn't have that thing. And I thought it had to be hard. Or they just showed up, right? Like I just walked into a room and, oh, well, here's my team. They're all here waiting to
Totally.
have this grand discussion. When in reality, what I needed to do was simply invite them in. And
Yes.
after literally years, like it probably wasn't until I was in my 40s that a friend of mine said to me, Joe, just have coffee with them.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
like, huh?
love that.
What are you talking about? Don't I need to burn some sage?
So what do you do? Tell me now that you know this, because your story is so beautiful, and thank you for sharing it. It's so authentic, and I think the real story of most people, not like
Mm-hmm.
most people aren't born into a family that are taking into meditation classes and such. So tell
Right.
me, like, what are the concrete actionable things that you do on a daily or weekly basis
Mm-hmm.
to welcome your team in?
So literally every single day when I journal, I
Journal.
write down, spirit team, you are in the game today. Because we do
Yes.
have free will and we have to invite them in. And I invite them in the game to be with me. And I literally, word for word, spirit team, you are invited in the game today to be with me, to guide with me, to protect me, and share any knowledge, wisdom, and guidance that I may need for the highest good of everyone involved. And because I am the way I am, a little bit of a smartassy, I then say, Bob and Archangel Michael, I'm talking to you.
Yes,
Let's
that's so
go.
great. And I love that
And
because you're so eloquent in words, and I know, your chart a bit, and you've got a lot of air energy with your words, right? So that makes sense to me that you would write, and that's some people can do that, right? You can write it down. Text yourself on your own text thread every morning. Some people
right.
like are texters. If you text it, write it in a journal. Maybe it's you just close your eyes and in your meditation, or for 1 minute before you open your eyes and the feet hit the floor, say it in your mind. Just, team, welcome. I don't even know who you are. The other key
Mhm.
point that I love that you said is for the highest good of all, because that's another key point. I train people in their psychic abilities as part of my
Mhm.
coaching work, those who want to go down that road. And I get a handful of psychics every month who aren't understanding their energies, they're dreading, or I just get people who are having psychic experiences but aren't managing them quite as skillfully because they don't know how. It's not their fault. And
Mhm.
part of that is boundaries and psychic hygiene. So I love how you said that, because you don't want to just be like, it's kind of like a sweet, understandable but rookie psychic move. Okay, everybody, welcome team, right? Because like
Mhm.
if you go to a draft and you just say welcome, like you got like what on a sports draft, I don't know what, right? How many people you got? Like you don't want like the 30th player, you want like one or two.
Mhm. Right. Right.
So I
Exactly.
love how
And
you said, like, for the highest good of everyone, for the highest good of myself. That's what I tell people. Who wants to show up for my highest good and the highest good of everyone? So make that boundary. Such a great point.
yes, and I also, like you said, I write it down because it has become part of my daily routine. And it's like, okay, I'm calling them in. You can very easily, while you're still lying in bed, just simply say in your mind, team, you're in the game. Be with me today. Show me, guide me, support me. And it literally get up, and go about your day. You don't have to again, you don't have to light the sage and write down your story. It can be as simple as, let's go. Like
Yes.
you're in the game. And I think it
Yes.
was last year, I think around last year, I started walking around my house and just clapping. Like my team is with me. Like I wake up, I'm like, let's go, team, and I just start
Yes.
clapping. And
I love
it's
that.
is it. And I have this athletic background. I played football, and I just started visualizing before you run out onto the field. So I create that visualization. It was like, come on, team. Like every day, me and my team are running out onto that field, the field of life now. And it's there and it's silly, right? Can we raise our vibration in a silly way? And literally just be like, let's go, team. Come on. We're
So,
about to do this.
so good. And then the other thing people can use, I have clients particularly who have Earth in their chart, in the Western astrology
Mm-hmm.
tradition. So I've got the Virgos, and then that's Capricorn. The people who are very tangential might need tactical things, unlike
Yes,
Joe and I. And sometimes I do
100%.
do tactical things too, when I'm feeling less inspired, when I'm feeling groggy, when I'm on my moon cycle. There are times where I'm like, okay, let me use a divination tool, is what those
Mm-hmm.
are called. That's the accurate terminology, divination tool, to help me open up that Wi-Fi more to my spirit team. Or maybe I'm going through a hard time and I need extra like support, or I need a different perspective. And then I use divination tools. So let's talk about divination tools, what they are in your mind. You're a tarot king. I love to, read tarot and offer tarot readings as well. Talk to me about your favorite divination tools that you use to turn on that Wi-Fi and have that strong signal.
All right. So this is really interesting. Well, not really interesting, because I never thought anything really of this. It was given to me as a gift. I'm like, really? And then all of a sudden, one day, like the little voice was like, you're supposed to ring this. So when I'm ready in a session, doing a reading, doing whatever it is, before I hit the button to log in today to our call, I just ring my bell. And this is like, it's like it's calling the team in, like, dinner is ready, we gotta go to work. And so this is the first tool, I guess, that I use in this physical world, right? And it's just as simple as it's sitting right by the door. So as soon as I walk in, I ding it and I'm good to go. I set that just little sweet intention. And then obviously my oracle cards that I use, and they just flew into my life in 2019 because a friend left a deck in my house.
Love
And
it.
I picked them up and I just was like, oh, what is this? And it was just like that. As soon as I picked them up, I felt this energy. I'm like, okay. And I just started not knowing how to shuffle, right? Doing all of the sloppy shuffling. And it just, like, I felt it.
Yeah.
And once I pulled it, I'm like, ooh, that's kind of right on. Like, right on. And I wasn't pulling for anyone. Again, it was just cards that were left in my house. But I noticed that every time I kept pulling a card, it was like right on with whatever it was that I was thinking or questioning or sitting with. And fast forward a little bit, I went out on 2 dates with this woman, and we were at her house, second date, and kind of just hanging out, very relaxed. And she had all of these oracle cards, and I pulled up the Keeper of the Light deck, which is out in my other room that I absolutely love. And I picked it up, and we were just hanging out. She was in the kitchen. I pulled 3 cards. I swear it was like this cool breeze blew through the room. So much so I said, did you just feel that? Yeah, cool. And I flipped to 3 cards. And I was like, I think we're going to be friends. I think we're going to be friends. And it was like the cards and the cool breeze. It was just like this. Yeah, this is fun, but I think we're just going to be friends.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in that moment, I'm like, okay, there's really something that is in this. And I just started exploring it more. And then the pandemic happened. And once that happened, everything just kicked in.
Well,
But
I just want to highlight a few things you said that are powerful and that can be actionable steps and things to pay attention to when you start with divination tools, or for those friends who are really eloquent with divination tools already but want to take it to the next level. Pay attention to temperature, when you're doing any kind of receiving of information, because the truth is, and it's really true, I've come to see training people now with psychic abilities, everyone is psychic. Not everyone's a psychic medium, that's different, but psychic ability is literally to perceive information. And you're perceiving information that's delivered to you, sponsored by your highest self, your widest self, however you want to think of it, intelligent source energy. And you're receiving information from the outside of yourself that is also those things, that is synonymous with those things. Delivered to you by different sponsors is how I think of it, a la your spirit team. You've got different archetypes that are supporting you and sponsoring this event. And so temperature is a really important, and it can feel subtle in that you miss it. It's so easy to miss. Like you said, the majority of people think, oh, like you said, exactly, I'm going to start, oh, I don't see things. I don't see spirits walking around my house. Oh, I don't hear messages that are loud from a boombox. So, oh, I'm not psychic. And the truth is, for a long time, I had many readings over the years with different people, and everyone would say, you're psychic. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. Like, yeah, I'm intuitive. Yeah, I give a lot of advice to people. But for me, it was very slow roll. It was subtle, and it's subtle work. And so temperature is a real barometer to when you are connected. When your Wi-Fi is on, you've got those 5 bars. So I love how you spoke of that. You also talked about a feeling. What's the feeling for you? So temperature is one, just a temperature change or feeling like tingly. Some people it's in their hands, some people it's in their throat. So you pay attention to which part of the body, but scan your body and practice that art of attention, pausing, and notice, do you feel any temperature change, sensation, shift, tightness, openness, expansiveness, any of it? Could just be like, oh, here I am connected to my team.
Exactly.
What's another feeling for you? And like when you said, oh, and I just felt the cards, right? Because it takes us out of our mental, egoic, intellectual mind. You weren't like, oh, do I like this person or not? Right? It took you out of that and acted like a mirror and reflected back the truth of how you felt, right? That's what divination tools do.
For me, it's very energetic. And I bring it back to my first energy experience in a Kundalini class when we just simply rubbed our hands together and then played with that ball of energy. That moment, right, that like, oof, that I felt in that class is like it's the best way for me to explain that feeling. It's like, oh, like a little, like just a shock, but not like like almost like a you get your clothes out of the dryer. When you got that little electric shock, why can't I think of what it's called?
Static electricity, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, just a simple static electricity. It's like that little like, whoo, oh, wow. For me, really it's like that. And my whole body then will just turn on. Yeah. Just covered in chicken skin when it is coming through, and it's like, okay, all right, this is really it.
And sometimes it's you play with the tools, because some people won't experience that right away. So don't think you're not doing something quote unquote right, because first of all, there's no right, but second of all, you play with the tools, there's 100% success rate. Like you'll see, right? So sometimes you get the message and then you get the chills up the spine, because that's another one. Sometimes you just get the message like you did and it hits you in the gut like, oh my God, this is true, right? And it's that knowing in your gut, right? So it can be after you get the message. Pendulums are another great divination tool, right? Do you work with pendulums at all? I have one in my wallet. I have one. And I don't use them a lot.
Much. Neither do I, but I was just about to tell you a story about one. So I have one, and I wasn't going to get it. Tina and I were at this beautiful place up here by Stroudsburg. It's called Colosseum. I think I'm pronouncing it the right way. And it looks like a Stonehenge. Someone created this beautiful walking meditation space with these big stones, and there's a labyrinth. And it's just absolutely beautiful. And then they have this little gift shop that nobody works in, but there's a little box, right? So like, pay what you want, or here's our Venmo. So really, very like, we trust you. Write down in the notebook what you're buying, Venmo us, or put your money in the box. And I walked through the little store, and Tina was still outside. And I picked up this blue pendulum, and I'm like, this is interesting. And I'm looking, I'm like, but do I really need this? And I put it back on the shelf, and I continue to walk around. Tina goes in the little shop. I go outside, and there's a video playing of the guy that created the space. So now I'm watching the video. Tina's inside the shop doing whatever. We leave, and as we walk out, she pulls out the same pendulum that I was holding. She's like, I don't know what it is, but I think we're supposed to have this. So, and it's that I picked it up and was like, ooh, but didn't listen. There was something about it, but I didn't get it. Tina goes right in and gets it.
Yeah.
Who knows what it is? And it's one of those, can we be childlike with this? Like, wow, right? That was awesome. I don't need to look too deep into it, but okay, spirit team, I'll start exploring what this tool can do.
And a pendulum is something, for friends who don't know it, you just hold it over your hand. Like Joe said, I love that. You just want to be playful. And the key with a pendulum is you ask yes or no questions. So it'll swing above your palm in a certain way. And then you think of something in your life that's a total yes. Like your partner, your dog, your ball, the beach that you love, with something you love, something you absolutely love, and then say, show me yes, and it'll swing one way. Then think of something that you abhor, war, hatred, whatever it is. Maybe it's some food you hate, and say, show me no. And it's unbelievable. Like I have people who don't believe in anything, and then they do that and they're like, oh my God, like they still don't believe in anything, but they believe in their pendulum. So it's a very
Mm-hmm.
powerful tool. All my Virgo clients love it. All my Virgo clients who can't, like, if they have hard time, accessing their mental body and different things, or getting out of their mental body rather, and pendulums are huge. There are also things like dowsing rods, which are Irish. So I have that Celtic Irish background. And when you go to Ireland, there are these two rods you hold in either hand and they
Mm-hmm.
turn. And they're actually tools in ancient times that allow you to access where the water lines are. So when they were trying to access running water and create running water, and they still do this to this day in Ireland, the the people all over the world. I've told some indigenous folks to use these as well, but you can do the yes and no with those. So they're really, really cool. And runes are a good one. I'm not so prolific in runes. I got some when I was in Glastonbury, Avalon, recently, and
Mm-hmm.
doing my priestess ordination ceremony. And I was like, I need runes, and they've called me, but I haven't gotten super skilled at them. But they're, an ancient tool. They're fun to play with, and I'm going to get more into them this year. So
Mm-hmm.
there are lots of things. Journaling, like you said, automatic writing. You just put the pen down and then you set a timer and let it go. But there's so many ways that you can then invite your spirit team. That's how they can use these mediums to talk with you, to give you messages, to share wisdom. And so sometimes we can't go at it through our minds because our minds are so strong. So using those tools can really help.
I would love to share a fun practice for everybody to try.
Go for it. Yeah.
So it's very simple. We're going to ask our spirit team to show us a word that we don't know and we need to look up the meaning for. So, spirit team, show me a word today that I don't know and I need to look it up.
So good. I love that. Because
And
it's like reverse engineering, and I'm sure everyone's had this experience when you hear a new word, you don't know the meaning, and then you hear it like within that 24-hour period 3 other times, right? Haven't
mm-hmm.
we all had that experience? You're like, what is that word, and why does that keep showing up? And that's such a great exercise. How fun. I'm going to do that. Everyone do that, and DM us, let us know
Yeah, let
what
us
word
know.
comes up.
Let us know what happened. I did this. I heard it was. I saw it on a TikTok video, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. And I wrote it down in my journal because that's again how I do it. And I dated it, and it was right around lunchtime. And I said, okay, spirit team, show me this word. Right? Show me this word that I need to look up. Kilkenny, within minutes of writing that down, Stella started barking. I said, Stella, we're safe. And I don't want to say my Mac assistant, I don't want to say her name, came on and gave me a word. Thought I said a word. I took a screenshot of it. It was a Jewish word. I don't know. I'll try to find it so you can put it in the show notes. And it came up on my computer screen and gave me the definition of the word, as if I asked, what is this word? That it thought I said when I was saying, Stella, we're safe. The word, I remember the meaning, because of course, meant stop and listen.
Uh,
So it was like I asked the question again, how simple it could be. And I swear it was within minutes of writing it down that this whole little thing happened. And my computer kicked on and was like, oh, the meaning of this is stop and be
I
quiet.
just got full
Stop
body
and
chills. Full body chills. And everyone, do that, and don't take our word for it. And it's
mm-hmm.
like, actually do
Exactly.
it. Don't take our word for it. Do it. Experience it. And that's when the magic will unfold for you, because the universe is always trying to deliver us messages through signs, through symbols. So, like we said, invite them to come to the party, invite them to come to the festivities of your life, which is your life. And then, ask could be, please, for my highest good and the highest good of all. And then pay attention to who shows up. Like, actually
mm-hmm.
pay attention. Maybe you start seeing a fox on the back of a truck, and then you hear a fox late at night. Last week, I was on a live with you, and it was like all week it was fox, fox, fox. And there was
Mm-hmm.
even someone who jumped on our live and blocking me from getting on, whose name was Fox. And I was like, this is unbelievable, right?
Uh-huh.
So start paying attention to what and who shows up for you after you ask, because it could be an animal, it could be someone in your ancestry that your aunt then mentions on the phone. You know, there's such a myriad. It could be Archangel Michael, like for you. It could be Lakshmi, you know, a goddess of abundance in the Indian tradition if you practice yoga.
And
But pay attention,
it,
because when you notice them, then they feel even more welcome and they'll keep coming more. But if you don't have your binoculars on after you ask, that's another thing people forget. Like I had a client who was like, I did it, but it didn't really work, you know. I mean, the only thing that came up were eagles, you know, and I went on vacation, there were eagles flying around, but that kind of happened on any vacation. She's like, and then I noticed when we were driving home, we stopped at a rest stop and it was called Eagle Island, but that could have happened to anyone. And then I kept seeing postal trucks all week long. And then when she said the postal truck, she's like, oh, wait, okay, I guess that is kind of a lot of connection. And it's like, yeah, like don't see those threads, Hansel and Gretel it. And then celebrate it. Don't just ignore it. Because sometimes people have their blinders on and are looking for one thing. They're looking for, like, you know, Mary and Jesus to come to them in that form. And yet all these other forms are coming and they're not paying attention. What's your
right.
experience with that?
I will forever hold this in my heart after our session together. And we were talking about my team and my higher dimensional octopus friend, Bob, who at the time I didn't know
I
his
was
name
doing
was
a reading
Bob.
for Joe, just to clarify for listeners,
Yeah.
right? And I this being kept coming in.
And you're like, it's a jokester and it wants you to figure out its name. And I'm like, I think his name is Bob, but I think Bob is a smartass and is messing with me. And at the next day, probably right after our session together, journaling, I wrote down, again, keeping it simple, I literally wrote down, if your name is Bob, I need to see it. Simple. Billboard on the side of a truck, like, show up, Bob, if your name is really Bob. And I said it that way, right? Like I'm talking to a smart ass, because I think that also keeps it light. Like literally saying, all right, spirit team, like if your name is Bob, then show me. Like make it so obvious that I cannot ignore it. And within 48 hours, there was a fishing bobber next to my house in the woods.
The mountains.
There's a lake about 2 miles away. There's no lake next to my house. And I don't fish. And there it was, upside down, the orange side facing up. So obvious. And I can't even, I saw it and I looked at Tina. I was like, oh my God, that is a fishing bob. It's a fishing bobber. Bob, freaking Bob,
showed up for you. And in the
right
reading,
up.
like he was a prick. He wouldn't tell me his name. He was like, he's got to do it. And I really love that, because I feel like, you know, sometimes with people who are either smartasses or tough, like they're, you know, they don't believe, quote unquote, easily.
Mm-hmm.
The universe really wants them to ask because they want to blow their minds. Right. Do you know what I mean? Like people who believe, you know, energy and messages can come through one way, but it's like the universe almost reflects back to them their smartassness or their non-believerness by being like, ask me and then I'll really blow your mind, right? Like, so you were playing with the universe. I love that so much.
And I think it's fun, is for all of us to go that route, play, right? I'm doing this and really be pure with it. I'm doing this for the highest good of everyone involved. If I'm supposed to know your name, then tell me your name. If you're a ball buster like I am, have fun with it. And another thing that I've also been working with, and it's, I don't want to say hard, it's a different perspective. Your spirit team, I feel, and this is just my own personal feeling, is my spirit team works for me and I'm the boss. And it's up to me to tell them what they're supposed to do. Just as when in my life as an IT director, I would have my team meetings with my staff and tell them what needed to be done that day. Same, I feel, is true with our spirit team. That you could literally have a spirit team meeting every morning and say, this is your job today. I'm the boss and you work for me. And that's hard, I think, and really a lot of responsibility there, because I think a lot of times we throw to our spirit team, you take it, help me. But what if? It's like, no, this is what is your job today. Get to work.
Yeah, well, and part of it too with you, I think, and I find this with myself, it works when you're really clear about what you want. Like you are a manifestation mindful coach and you live and walk the walk and talk the talk, right? So you and I are very clear. Like, you ask me now, what is your mission? What are your goals? Like, they're all in my head. Like, I've sorted them all out, right? And so I think some people, they're so foggy and murky, and then it's hard because they do need help. It's like, okay, show me the next right action. But still, I love what you said, because it's directing them. It's like, okay, show me the next most skillful step.
And I love that. Show me the next right action. If you're writing and you're a journaler, what else do I need to know? What should I write down right now? Give me the words.
Yes.
And keep it in that simplicity. Show me that billboard. Yes. Whatever those words might be. If it needs to be on a billboard for me to actually see it, then put it on the billboard so I can see it.
And then remember to look at the freaking billboards.
Right, exactly.
Right? That's the other thing. Like, then don't be looking at your phone while you're driving. I mean, you should never do that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, actually pay attention to where they might lead you. But I love what you're saying, because it's okay, you connect your team, you do all the things we talked about, ask them to come in for the highest good of everyone, then ask them, right, pay attention to when they're coming through, and then what do you want them to share with you, and pay attention to their answer. What are you looking for? Like, I think part of what you're saying that's so good is get clear. What arena do you need them to support you with? Which type of guidance are you looking for? Because the more specific in that way you can be, then you can get more specific answers back. Just like tarot readings, I don't know how you do them, but I always say to someone, yeah, you can ask a general. Like, some people just want, okay, tell me, please, be open. That's very beautiful and spacious. But then more often than not, people come with specific arenas of life or specific challenges to work out and work through, understandably. And I say, okay, make it as specific and clear what you're asking about. Recently I had someone come to me and say, like, oh, I want to meet, this Hollywood star, and I was like, but I also want to know about my parents and the mortgage and this and this and that. And I was like, no. I was like, if you're asking about meeting this star and your life going this one direction, they had a connection to this person, we can go there. Or you can ask about the mortgage, but you can't be asking about both, and so getting very clear, right? It helps you get better results, for sure. I love that.
I think the interesting thing about this, and you touched on it just a little earlier, it is that clarity in being specific and awareness. And here's the secret to all of life. It is that awareness and being clear and specific and noticing, how are we talking throughout the day? And do we have that idea of, where am I going? I sign up for Google Alerts to send me emails of things about positive psychology and mindset, all of these things. So I don't have to look for it. If somebody writes an article, I'll get an email, once a day. It's like, here are the things that were on that topic. And there was one just about mindset and how simple mindset practices of just focusing on your breath for a couple minutes a day will help you become a better problem solver, to think more critically under pressure by just focusing on our breath, being consistent. So we can then say, this is the life I want. But we're usually so that we can't just say, I don't even know, right, what to tell my spirit team to help me with, because I don't know what I want.
Or prioritize. Like, okay, I have these 3 things, the relationships, money, and your health. We'll get clear, okay, which one am I doing today? Which am I doing first? Try not to multitask your spirit team too much.
Right. Keep it all.
Download confusing messages. So I love what you're saying. Keep it organized. The other thing I love, parse it out. One day do one day do the other. Then you'll get clearer messages. The other thing I love that you said, it's very profound, is the breath. Because, of course, that's another way to welcome your team in. If you take 3 deep breaths, team, spirit, obviously is invisible energy, invisible Shakti, they call it in the yoga tradition. They're not in embodied form. And our breath is that bridge from embodied form to spirit. So if we're breathing, it's another way we're welcoming in. So I love that reminder. Thank you so much. Another thing that one can do, of course, is get specific and think about, okay, from childhood or maybe even just from adulthood, which energies are you attracted to? Have you always loved elephants? So call in, evoke. You know, there's this concept in psychic work. There's invoking and evoking. And so it's a really interesting distinction. So when we invoke, if you're a psychic medium, which is not just being psychic, as I mentioned, every person in my experience actually is psychic because everyone can use their senses and everyone is connected to a spirit within themselves. The spirit lives within them. So they have that automatic Wi-Fi setup. So they perceive information, and the way you perceive psychic things is to use your senses. It's really simple, but not easy. Psychic mediumship is you're receiving information. So there are certain people who know how to receive information and have that wiring, you know. And with invoking and evoking, it's similar in terms of its distinctiveness. Invoking is like when you're channeling, you know, in the psychic world, it's called trans channeling. So like Abraham Hicks, right? That's a perfect example. When Esther channels, she's trans channeling. That's the official name for that. And so she literally is making her body and psyche and heart so available that the spirit and this energy can literally embody her body. Or like if you've seen that movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg, right? She's like trans channeling, right? And so that's an invoking. We can evoke, that means call towards, evoke, comes from the Latin root, like beckon. So we can all evoke our spirit team by thinking of what we're attracted to. Am I attracted to the god Shiva in my yoga class and his power and his Rasta energy and his spunk? Am I attracted to whale energy? You know, think about what you've already been attracted to in your life, maybe from when you're young, can always be a beautiful door opener, maybe now, and then start to evoke by printing a picture out, buying a pair of yoga pants with Shiva on your butt, like whatever it is, you know, that light, or a baseball cap with Shakti on it, you know, whatever it is that you want to elicit, because you already have a little clue. And chances are that is actually a part of your team because you've already been attracted to it, and it will just pour into your life. All of a sudden, you'll start seeing those whales or those elephants or Shiva or, right? So there's that practice of evoking.
Yeah, and that awareness then of in that, it bringing them in, and now we're going to start seeing them, and we're going to see them more. And the thing that I enjoy about all of this is then our awareness creates spirit teamwork and us here also working, because we do have to be in that awareness. Show me the message. I have to be in a state of openness to see the message when it's presented to myself. So I can be present to see that billboard, to see the fishing bobber in the woods next to my house. It's all this practice, but once we start doing just the little practices, the compound effect on all of them are so tremendous that it's not, I don't even think it just becomes second nature to us, that when I get out of bed in the morning, I call in my team. I surround myself with protective energy. I set my day off on the right foot, knowing that I'm good, I'm safe, I'm protected, I'm taken care of. And it literally is just like, oh, right, this is just how I live anymore. And I have this team behind me that works for me, that helps me get where I want to be. And it doesn't have to be hard.
Yes. But it's practice, because you'll start and then you'll forget.
Practice.
You'll start, you'll forget. You'll start, you'll forget. This is so what it is to be human. And then we just have to set systems in place to remind us, phone reminders, you know, messages on sticky notes, whatever it is, all those things, so that then it becomes rote and we just do it automatically eventually. And then, like you said, so important, then you get the signs and it becomes this giving, receiving cycle. If you pay attention and then do the signs. So that's the next step. You pay attention to the signs, you see the billboard, but then if you don't listen to the messages, it's like, you know, the friend who you call asks for advice, and then if you don't take it, it's kind of annoying to your friend. And over time, you'll shut down that pathway. So actually do the thing. And if you're not ready to do the thing, like if you're like, okay, should I quit my office job or not? Show me the sign. And you line everything up in the steps we talked about. And then you get the billboard that says, quit the job or quit whatever, and then you're not actually ready to quit and you're not going to listen to it, nothing bad's going to happen to you, but yet you've shut down,
Mm-hmm.
right, that communication a bit. And so you might be mindful to start small, or
Yes.
don't ask for things that you're not ready to maybe do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point. Also, don't ask for things that you might not want the answers to.
Yes.
Because once we open up the door is now open. And my friend that told me, to just have coffee with my spirit team, like just sit down and talk to them, like have coffee. You love coffee, have coffee. I said to her, I was like, I feel like I have to be on best behavior when we're together. She's a beautiful woman, and I said to her, I was like, I'm afraid that if I think, wow, Amy looks hot today, you're gonna know that I think that. Right. And just like I can say, oh, wow, you look good. But there is this like, oh, wow, I know she knows the things. I wonder, is this weird? And I have this whole conversation in my head. So at lunch one day, I was like, I have these conversations before we hang out. Like, I'm afraid to just be a normal person. Like, what if a random thought pops into my head about you as we're eating lunch? And that thought. And she said the most beautiful thing. She was like, yeah, I told my team to stop telling me those things because I don't want to know them.
Yes.
She was like sitting down with
Totally.
my boyfriend one day. I was like, oh, yeah, I don't want to know what he's thinking. I don't want to know that.
It's so true. It's
And
so
it,
true. And it's a boundary thing. And I've had to, honestly, like when the psychic work started becoming clear that it was my path, I fought it. I resisted it. I'm still like coming to reckoning with it to a certain extent because of various things. And one of the things that I really was invited to learn, and thank God, I had great people in my life mentoring me that, taught me this, is like, you got to put those boundaries up,
mm-hmm,
because like they will come if you're very open. And for most people, you don't have to be scared of this because most people have a hard time with them
uh-huh,
coming, right? And we're talking about how to access that. And but they would come, for me at night, sometimes in the bathroom, and it's just like, oh, good God, like, I'm not living my life like this. And then like with my kids and different people, and learning, no, like there's an open sign and there's a closed sign. And
mm-hmm,
just like you
yeah,
said, like I don't want to know like my clients think whatever about me or anything. And so this is the thing you really get, and I think that goes back to your point of you being the boss, that one perspective,
mm-hmm,
or a team leader, that you get to say, hey, you don't get to come into my bathroom or wake me up from sleeping, or,
mm-hmm,
whatever. You get to put those barometers in, because some people rightfully are scared. They say, oh my God, if I open this door to my team, I'm going to get things all the time. So you
mm-hmm,
can literally say to your team, hey, show me a clear sign and I just want one. And that can be enough. I had a
mm-hmm,
student recently was trying to make a decision about something. She was a little bit non-believer, about certain things. I said, ask for three. Just say three. And she got one, and she thought it was cool, but and she needed three, but she knew she needed three, and that was
mm-hmm.
enough, right? So you can set up the boundaries, the structures, the strictures. It's a great point. And then, like I always tell my kids, like I don't want to know about you, so don't worry, like because they
Right.
know my work, and they know me because they've lived with me my whole life, and they're always like, Mom, sometimes it's like, oh, Mom said don't go right, do not go right. They
Mm-hmm.
just like when we're driving, it's just
Right,
one
right.
of our lifestyle things. But like I have very clear boundaries. Like, nah, don't. I'm not hacking personal people in my life, and don't let me, and I won't. That
Mm-hmm,
kind of thing. So you can do that. It's part of that clarity. Another interesting thing, though, I wanted to make sure we get to is ancestor work, because
mm-hmm,
right, we talked about accessing and welcoming team members, and that could be an angel because we haven't used that semantic. I think angels, right? So
uh-huh,
with you, Archangel Michael came up in our reading
mm-hmm,
that we did together, and you're so tuned into him, and his energy is such a big part of your life and work. So some of you will have angels that you're connected to, and so you kind of are on your team. If you feel connection, you can be assured they're on your team.
mm-hmm.
But what about ancestors, right? Let's talk about ancestors, because that's something that blew my mind a few years ago when one of my ancestors showed up that never happened to me before.
Mm-hmm.
It was just in a meditation. I was doing a lead meditation on Insight Timer, and I thought, oh, cool. Like, I've had experiences in meditation
Mm-hmm.
with feeling different ancestors, like vaguely, and maybe like talking or in my mind to a few who I knew of. I didn't meet, but like I have pictures of. but I did a very clear meet an ancestor or something meditation. I can't remember the details of it. So I do the meditation. It's 10 minutes. It's guided. They led you through. So do this. There are all these free apps. Get an app about, doing a protector guide meditation and meeting them. Do an app about your ancestor. I had this unbelievable experience where I saw this woman and she was in black and white clothes, and it was like a whole thing. And I'm not going to share all the details because I want to keep going on actionable steps for everyone else. But the point is that later I asked a family member, hey, and I described her. And I said, does this ring a bell? Like back in, your mind of anyone you've met? And my relative went and got a picture, and it was her. And I was like, oh my God. Now at this point I've had many experiences over my life. I'm a big believer in all the things. And this blew my mind to the next level. And this is why this work is so exciting, because I was like, this is really possible. And it's because I got so specific, invoking for my highest good and the highest good of everyone and what I needed to hear next, that this particular ancestor, who I don't even know her name, showed up for me. And all these things about her that she told me and I felt when I talked to the person who knew her in real life, couldn't believe it and corroborated, right? Mm-hmm. So you can pick an ancestor you've had affinity for. You can pick one you've heard stories about, you love. That's the way I recommend starting with ancestors. Mm-hmm. Then you can automatic write. So with your right hand, you can, or I'm right-handed, you might not be, but with your dominant hand, write, hi, welcome. And you can just start writing about them. What you know about them. I know you have black hair. I know you were kind, whatever. And you can either see if the pen just kind of starts automatically writing more quickly for you, or a different handwriting. I've had a client, a different neat handwriting came up that was very squat for a male ancestor, and they could come out for you that way. Or you could try starting with your left and welcome the ancestor after you've written with your dominant hand. Write with the non-dominant hand, and just that non-dominant handwriting will then channel them in. So that's one way. Don't invite all the ancestors, because guess what? A lot of your ancestors
they'll all show up.
They'll all and a lot of them have unfinished trauma, wounds that you don't necessarily want to be dealing with. So that's another important point that I teach people a lot. No, don't invite all those ancestors in. Mm-hmm. I had a reading recently where a sweet grandfather came in, but he, had associations with like Nazis and stuff, and it was like intense. So you want to be clear. It ended up being healing for her for several reasons, but the point is, be clear. Say only for my highest good. Maybe say only gentle ancestors come in. You can use adjectives, things like that. What about you with ancestors? What's your experience, or how do you like to work with them?
Oh, man. Again, this is, I love my mom. My mom, I was conceived the night my mom's dad passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I literally have come out of the womb with my mom saying, you were a gift from God to replace my dad. Just on my birthday. When she called to say happy birthday, I said happy day of giving birth. And right into, you were a gift from God to replace my dad. So there's always been this thing with us. He was in a mining accident and lost his hand. But I was never told the whole story that it was a mining accident. I just heard he lost his hand in a train accident. And Kilkenny, let me tell you, my whole life, I have had this thing with trains. And how in God's name do you get hit by a train? It's a train. Move. Just move. It's a train. So my whole life I have this. And then finally, my brother tells me the story that it was a mining accident. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Now, sorry for the long story. I'm going to say probably around 1998, 99. I'm living in Philadelphia and I'm sketching charcoal, but with my left hand. I'm a right. And these pictures, these faces just keep coming out. Keep drawing these faces. I'm like, what the heck? Who is this? And why are they like kind of scary? But it seems familiar. Fast forward to when I'm telling my brother about being annoyed about the story, and my grandfather who tells me the story and pulls out this picture of my grandfather also owned a bar, of him in the kitchen of the bar. I swear it is identical to the left-handed drawings of these faces that I was drawing in 98, 99. So we've always been connected. And then just about a year and a half ago, I was writing and my penmanship changed and it got hard to write. And I was like, who am I talking to? Who's talking here? And it was like, John. I'm like, of course. And that's why it's hard to write, because you don't got a hand.
Mm. It's such an amazing
And it
story.
was
It's an
this like,
amazing.
oh, wow. Okay. And it really was this, yeah, you're here, right? Not to be me. You're not me. You're you. I'm just here to kind of help keep your mom in check.
Yeah. Yeah. He was
Like
like,
she'd been
hey,
saying the
you're
whole
it.
time,
Yeah.
in more of this. And he was just like, no, you're just here to listen. And really, my
Yeah.
whole life, that's kind of what I've been doing from my mom, just like listening, just
And
listening.
that's your word that you got from when you asked what word
Right.
is mine, that right?
Yeah.
In
Just
Hebrew or
listen.
something,
How
right?
about that? How about
Right?
that?
So
So,
that's an
you,
amazing
you,
story.
like my whole life, I had this thing. In my first Vedic astrology reading with this wonderful woman, Bethela, who passed away many years ago, she looked at my hands and looked at me. She knew nothing besides my birth date. And she was like, you're not him. I'm like, excuse me?
Mm.
She's like, you're not him, but you definitely cross paths and he gave you your mission, but you're not him. Like,
So
oh
she
my
affirmed that for
goodness.
you because that could have been like in the back of your mind,
And for a
right?
lot of my life, it was. I was like, am I? And I think that's part of the whole like hit by a train. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's just so beautiful because he, in my experience, and I don't know how you feel, but he's just around you a ton. You know,
Yeah.
like I'll have readings with people and there's just someone and it's like, no, all your ancestors are like, you call an ancestor, they're going to come. You know,
Mm-hmm.
99.9%, unless they're doing some deep healing work in my experience or something. However, we can evoke them, but there's usually one that's really hanging out with you, and it could be your whole life. And sometimes it's just like a 10-year stretch. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
that ancestor had either not learned a certain lesson that you're picking up the baton to learn, or they have learned that lesson and they're really in your corner, like your coach cheering you
Mm-hmm.
on, right? So that's it. I love that story so much. So you can think about listeners, you know, if there's an ancestor you've always resonated with or been a little fascinated with them or their story or their picture or just one you knew and then has passed, and work with them. You know, if you have a picture, put the picture up, light a candle, simply that. The candle lighting is a way to welcome them in, and you will all of a sudden get messages or signs or synchronicities. You know, they get excited. They
Mm-hmm.
are hanging out with you your whole life and you've never freaking texted them. You've never, in your mind, you've never communicated. So
Mm-hmm.
picture it. They love you unconditionally. And then all of a sudden you turn and you see them or you welcome them. They want to show up for you. They will send you coins. They'll send you feathers. Ask for those things too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, ask for tangible, like, hey, if you're around me, can you show me some coins? Get specific. Show me feathers. I did this whole exercise once where I was like, no, I want red feathers. They
Uh-huh.
have to be red because I was in that dire need at that time of my life for that kind of affirmation, and I got it. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
you can be really, really specific, but you definitely have ancestors and a team around you. And if you have ancestors who you feel like sucked, that you don't want to connect, that freak you out, you know, you somewhere down the line. I have an episode on ancestral healing that blew up. It was early on, but it was very wildly popular. It was, I don't know, it was 25, 30 around that realm. And I talk about the numerology, which I forget, of how many ancestors you have. Meaning, if you just Google that, right, you have
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, because you have yourself, and then obviously you have two parents, but then each parent, right? So you've got four grandparents. But when you do that math exponentially, you've got like a gazillion and like a couple generations back.
Mm-hmm.
So you inevitably have ancestors that were, you know, kind, altruistic, artists, even if you come from a family of doctors, healers, if you come from a family of, you know, whatever, or you know, maybe you're terrible with money, probably one of them was a stockbroker, like somewhere you had someone of what you're looking for just by the sheer statistical probability. So call on them, you know, call on
Yeah.
one that has that asset to help you. The
And it
other thing that oh, I'm sorry, do you want to say something else?
oh no, I was just gonna highlight again that it really can be that simple as just reaching out, like you're picking up a phone. What's up? What's up, Grandpa? How you doing?
You light that candle, just say hello in your mind's eye, that's enough. Yeah. I want to make sure we touch on elements and the elementals before we
Mm-hmm.
start to wrap up, because that's another surefire way, completely foul proof way, in my experience, to tap into your wisdom team. So that if you're like, I just don't, feel like I can, or you just feel blocked with the ways that we've already laid out, go to nature.
Uh-huh.
Spend 5 minutes with a bouquet of flowers, even in your house. Nature is just totally intrinsically connected with life force energy, with the intelligent state of life. And so just by being with nature, it mitigates any kind of contracted energy and will expand your energetic field, your psychological field. And when you're connected to that intelligent life force energy, that's the field where all the team hangs out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So take a walk. It's incredible how yeah, I don't even want to say anymore because I talk about nature so much. Just hang out with nature and you'll see.
And I was going to say, so many people are like, oh, hug a tree. If hugging a tree makes you feel weird, just put your hand on a
Mm,
tree. Just put your hand on a tree and just breathe. And you'll feel it. You will feel it. Ask the question, put your hand on that tree and just breathe and listen and see what comes through.
awesome. Yeah, and you can do this hack where if you go to a certain space again and again, like you're parked down the street from your house, or for you, your favorite mountain, lucky you.
Mm-hmm.
You can look around for the sentinel being, it's called. So look around for, it's called like the gatekeeper energy of the natural space. It might be a huge tree, it might be a huge rock, one that looks like grandparent-esque, that looks
Mm-hmm.
wise. And like you said, to put your hand on that, and it's an incredible thing. When we really ourselves can be so deprived of nature. So many clients I know are deprived of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about all our ancestors, before the industrial revolution, which is what, 150 plus years ago, that's it. Everyone was hanging out and doing farming their food in, or getting it out in
Mm-hmm.
nature in some way, right? Mostly. And so it's really so important to check in with nature, align with nature, not only for your psychological state and all the benefits, but it will literally bring you to the same vibration as spirit, of source, of your ancestors, of your spirit team. And then you'll open up and just hear messages more.
Mm-hmm.
Taking baths, think about water element, right?
Yeah.
So much of our water even now is like, purified, and that's a great thing, but like try to find spring water, try to find, water with different processes that have brought life force energy back into it. There's all sorts of ways you can research that.
Mm-hmm.
Be with fire, the elemental of fire. Make it a practice for a week. Light a candle every day. Make a bonfire. Seek out fire. Seek out heat. Seek out the sun. Or it could be earth. Put your hands in the dirt. Put your feet in the dirt. You and I have talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Really call in mountain energy. Or it could be air. Feel the air through your hair. Let your hair down if you have hair. Do breath practices, breathing practices. So the elementals have an energy. And some people, an elemental is a person on their spirit team, so to speak. Not
Mm-hmm.
that they're people, but you know what I'm saying. They're a strong force that really have their back. So it might be for you, like, I've always loved water. It is for me. Oh, like, so the water element has taught me
Mm-hmm.
so many things and is literally a part of my spirit team. What do you think
Yeah.
about the elementals?
So, I'm right there in them. And I'll go right to the water. Again, keeping it simple and taking a shower or a bath to be able to, and it happens to all of us. Again, you might not think that you're psychic or intuitive, but I bet you've been in the shower and you've gotten a good idea. The problem to the solution to the problem that you were thinking about, it came in the shower, or maybe when you were washing the dishes, when you're in that space and it's just washing over. And it's happened to all of us. I know it has happened to all of us. So a great practice is, when you are going to shower, to take a bath, set that intention. I'm going in here to get that wisdom, right? I'm going to go step inside that time machine that's my shower, and I'm going to get some good stuff coming through. Again, keeping it fun and light as well. And with all of that, big boundary that I've set with my team is I don't want to know anything bad. Right? Growing up, I loved the Edgar Cayce stuff and the Nostradamus stuff. I don't want to know that stuff. And
Yeah,
I can say
it's
it.
huge. Yeah,
And
you can
right,
say it.
like,
You can make a list. I have a Google Doc. It's
uh-huh.
so funny, like, because one of my one of my main like karmic life lessons with people, with spirit and non-spirit, and everyone basically is boundaries. Meaning me figuring out how to make boundaries with others,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what came up, and that's such a fascinating point to even make. That energetically and with your spirit team, think about, okay, in your life with your people, what is a common denominational thing that you're always working on? If you could think about all your life lessons and then
Mm-hmm.
distill them into a few themes, whether it's faith, trust, whether it's boundaries, whether it's what else, what's one of yours?
I'm gonna probably now. I mean, I've never really thought about it, but the ones that popped right out were faith and trust.
I love that, right? So it's such a common one. It's for sure me too. So that one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's letting go. That's what surrender is one I see a lot of people in their readings that I do with them that come up, because the spirit teams will tell me
Mm-hmm.
all the time, like I'll get right away, oh, this person, and I say it to them, and they're inevitably, oh my god, that is my lesson. So the spirit teams know they're trying to help you learn a lesson, so they'll tell me. They're
Mm-hmm.
psychic easily. So anyway, so think of a lesson, because every one of you, if you're thinking hard, if you're listening to this podcast, you know the lesson. Come on, the
Uh-huh.
lesson. You've thought of the lesson. So you think of the lesson and then think about that in terms of your potential spirit team. So, like for me, boundaries, learning to make boundaries with people. So I had to learn how to make boundaries with my spirit team. And only when I finally really did that hard work, like really thought about, okay, if I'm going to do this work, what am I open to knowing? What do I not want to know? When am I open to knowing things? Like I said, when are my office hours? When are they not? Who am
Mm-hmm.
I, going to be getting information for, and who am I not? And really fine tooth combing boundaries. That is when my psychic work exploded within myself and to serve others more. And so you can think about with yourself, if it's faith or trust, then chances are that will transliterate to something to work on to get access to your spirit team. Has that been
Mm-hmm.
the case for you? Like for faith and trust, how has that played out with your spirit team, if that's one for you in your life?
It plays out in the ways where I get the message from a random, not a random person, right? But maybe somebody I'm working with, and they come back and say things. And I'm like, oh wow, I know they're talking about them, but they're talking to me. Like it's like that message is coming through, and it does keep popping up where it's like, what are you like? Almost having faith in all of this work that we do. Because when we do this work, sometimes you're like, what are you talking about? What is happening here? And having that faith where it's like, okay, the more I can believe it and step into it, the more I trust it, the stronger it gets. But
So,
it's
profound.
circling all the way back. It is the inspired action as well. So as we get these messages, and then are we going to put in that inspired action to bring it to life? And in
Yes.
Think and Grow Rich, one of the steps that Napoleon Hill talks about, and it's like 6 steps to riches, is putting in the inspired action. Like you ask for the signs, do the work, but we got to get out there and put in that inspired action that is going to create the reality that we're creating, whatever that might be. And it might just be, I ask for the sign, I'm going to listen.
Yes, I'm going to actually pay attention, and then I'm actually going to listen when I get and do the thing that the
Right.
message, the sign is telling me to do. And then I'm going to act like my spirit team is a real relationship in my life, like with my parent or my partner or my boss, and treat it as such and pay attention to it and tend to it and like a garden, water it and do consistent interactions with it. And that's when you will have it online all the time, full access. So
Yeah.
it's so great, Joe. Thank you so much for being here. I have like so many more things that I want to talk about, but we have to wrap up. So we will have you back and we'll talk about all those other things. I can't wait. The other thing you can do, though, just to leave people, because I always like to leave people with an exercise. Maybe we'll do two, since it's you and me today. That I'll
Mm-hmm.
do one, and then maybe you can lead that the orb one where you rub your hands and then
Oh,
play
okay.
with the ball, since you mentioned that one, because I love that one so much too. So let's
Mm-hmm.
leave you with two party favors. One when you're walking down the street, okay, pay attention to the little conversations you overhear, because they're no accidents. Like what you overhear innocuously inevitably are signs for you. So that's one I challenge everyone with. When you're going throughout your day today, you've already asked the universe for your word, like Joe mentioned earlier. So you're paying attention. If there's a word that you don't understand, you're going to look that up, and that's for you too. But this one, when you're walking down the street, when you overhear things, what are you overhearing? Because chances are it's for you. How can you apply it in your life? Okay, now your turn.
That's a good one. So we're just going to build a little energy. And this is the energy that I spoke of that when I touched the cards, like, ooh, there it is. And it's very simply, we're just going to bring our hands together and you're going to rub your hands. We're going to start slowly and then just rub them a little bit faster. You're going to feel some heat and a little bit faster and a little faster. We probably all did this in elementary school, and then even a little bit faster. And then we're just going to pull our hands apart about like 4 inches, like there's a baseball or a softball. And as soon as you pull your hands apart, you feel that energy. And then you can just move your hands around. It's like you're moving that ball of energy. That's our energy. We just created that. We are part of all of this. We're part of this magic. And when we realize that we are this energy, like everything, the more we practice it and just play with it, like, I am connected to all of it. When we pick up our oracle cards, it's like, ooh, I feel that energy. When we ask the questions, like, I feel that energy somewhere in my body, but the awareness with everything, the more that we can come to the awareness of what our energy feels like, the awareness of what it is that we want in this life, and actually say, this is the life that I'm creating. Our spirit team works with us, our brain starts to work with us, and all of a sudden we sit in a space of, oh my goodness, look at this life that I created. Not this life that was given to me. I made it.
I love that. I love that so much. Thank you for that exercise. That really is that. I think that's called kinetic energy, right?
Yes.
It's occurring to me. So it's brilliant, I'm realizing, because you're physicalizing kinetic energy, and then that kinetic energy allows you to then bridge, and you feel the more subtle energy. So taking it to the very physical, to the very gross, to the very subtle. It's such a good hack. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And one last note, there's nothing to see there, but we can feel it.
Yes. It's all about feeling.
And it's
feeling.
Right. We're not always going to see the things, but what's it feel like?
And I like the word sensing. I find that really helps a lot of people. So some people it's feeling, but you can think of also sensing, because it's like very active to me. And yeah, so you can think of that word, whichever word gets you there. The feeling, sensing, it's so good, right? So good.
This is great.
Speaking of spirit teams and the technology that you use to connect to your angels, guides, and ancestors, I have made recently a free intuition building kit. So head on over to modernmystic.love/intuition. So many people have already reported to me the last few months how much they love it. I wish I had made it for myself years ago and for others years ago, but really practical 3 videos, ways to very sweet and shortly really amp up your intuition, that muscle that when you connect to it, you can live the most authentic and powerful version of yourself in your life. Joe, where can folks find out about you and your amazing work in this world that I love so much?
Easiest spot is Instagram, Inspire, Create, Manifest. And you can literally find all of my things now at Inspire, Create, Manifest. The podcast name has changed to Inspire, Create, Manifest. Our school community, Inspire, Create, Manifest. Website, Inspire, Create, Manifest. Come find me at Inspire, Create, Manifest. And seriously, check out all of the things. We're really excited about our school community. We hang out there bi-weekly meditations and mindset and manifestation masterminds. Lots of fun stuff going on there. So come check that out and be part of this beautiful growing community.
Thank you so much for this misfit mystic conversation. I love this topic. It's always such a joy to be with you, and everyone. Here's to living a more meaningful, mindful, and magical life. Namaste.
Namaste.